Hey fellow mobs, Moby here. Just a quick announcement, I have a Discord server now. This is where me and the other mobs hang out, so don't delay, join today. Now on to the video. Welcome to Armored Weapons. In this series, we interview some of the greatest players in the world and have them share their strategies, build, and tech. Water Strider builds are generally lighter tetrapods that rely on quick boost absurdity to dodge and hit hard with a pair of bazookas. Pilliger reached top 8 of the last major tournament using his heavier spin on the Water Strider.
On Pilliger, I played Armored Core Last Raven and Armored Core 4 as a child and thought they were just awesome, but I never really got into the PvP side of things. I was just thought, cool mech game, customize your mechs, have a good time. Then, for whatever reason, I never really bothered looking into the other Armored Core games, and I was never really into the Souls games until Sekiro, and that kind of reignited my interest in From Software. So yeah, I guess I'm an Armored Core Last Raven and Armored Core 4, not PvP veteran. You know, just being a gamer, just interested in the content and just seeing other things that are going on, like what's a strong build, what's a cool thing that's happening. I know from watching Souls game footage, I know Janine and Ouroboros are big into Armored Core, so I was also naturally getting pulled back into it that way. As for Strikers community, I just saw some YouTube videos, enjoyed them, and eventually decided, yeah, I'll join the Discord. I'll play some tournaments, see what's up. When I first saw a Water Strider build, which I think was just Striker talking about it and just showing off this is how you make a Water Strider, I first tried it and thought it was cool, but I didn't really like it, and instead what I was running was basically the Heavy Owl, which was a heavy tetrapod with the 20B generator, the Missile Lock FCS, and the Auroras. I still had the Majestic and the Explosive Thrower, and that was on the patch where Majestic was pretty busted. So basically I would just sit back from afar, held them with Auroras, which were attacker side at that time, so they were really difficult to dodge. You get a little too close, then I hit you with the Majestic, and then if you try to all-in me, I've got the Explosive Thrower to get that last bit of stagger. So I was kind of more of a stationary weapons platform hovering behind a building, just pelting you. And when 1.05 came, you know, that's got the Majestic nerf. Auroras are now defender side, as they should be. And the old build just was not cutting the mustard. The Burzel nerf as well, so I was slower too, and I got to B2 in the ranked climb, and the build just stopped working, and I had to make some changes, and that's when I decided to go all in on Water Strider. The build is designed to be adaptable with the weapons I brought, and the Water Strider movement, when used correctly, lets you really outplay a lot of different opponents. The build I'm going for is kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. So if I play it right, I should be able to win most matchups, but I would be lying to say that this is somehow a meta killer. It's more of a heavy Water Strider, so it's on the heavier side. So unfortunately, I can't really chain my quick boost quite as quickly as a traditional Water Strider would like to. But the evasiveness, yes, absolutely Water Strider. So that's going to be the tetrapod in hover mode using quick boost, which your quick boost stats change. And you can zip around, you can travel much further, you travel much faster, and this is brief and very annoying break-in period at the end of quick boost that you try to avoid when able to. You're trying to get the mobility of a Water Strider with the defenses of a heavier AC. That's basically how I go about it. Your dodges are your parries. As soon as you see the hurt coming, you dodge. And that works very well in basically all matchups, with the downside being you're also a big AC, so you're a big target. Those Zimmer rushdowns, they're going to hit you with a lot of pellets. The proximity detonation weapons, you've got a big AC, you need to move out of the proximity detonations. It's a lot of fine movement. The thing that makes it potent is that in between the quick boosts, I have the Majestic and the Explosive Thrower. The Majestic really needs no introduction. That thing hits hard, and it's very good at medium range. Explosive Thrower is good at close range, and the charge attack is good in medium range. So you've got these two weapons with high impact buildup that make medium range to close range pretty threatening. Now the missile launchers, it actually took me a while to figure out what missile launchers made sense, and the reason why I go with the MLT-10 is because while your missiles are firing, you can continue to spam quick boosts and they'll keep shooting. So I can start firing my first missile and I can do like 3 quick boosts before the MLT-10 is done firing. And that's a big deal because normally if you're just spamming quick boost, you can't fight back. Well, with the MLT-10, I can. So I'm avoiding my opponent and I'm sending missiles to deal with them. If I'm being chased down, so I'm quick boosting away from my opponent, the MLT-10s will be right in their face and they kind of have to dodge them. If I'm chasing, it also works out well because then I create this wave of missiles that kind of crash into my opponent while I'm closing the gap on them. Sometimes I'll fire the MLT-10 and sort of quick boost around them to surround them in missiles. the Duo 3, so it's the medium weight dual missile launcher. The first rule of thumb for missiles is that you should use different types of missiles, so when you do fire them simultaneously, your opponents have to think about different things to dodge. So I wanted to have the MLT-10, and the Duo fits in nice as well because I can use that to shoot around cover, so it's also pretty ideal for dipping in and out of cover. So when I decide to jump into cover, I can fire the Duos from behind cover, and they'll snake around, and they'll either hit my opponent or at the very least force my opponent to dodge, which kind of just gives me more time to fix my stagger, for example. What I recommend doing with the Duo 3 is wait until you fire about 5 to 7 of the MLT-10s and then launch the Duo 3s, because the Duo 3s are faster and you can kind of have them crash on your opponent at basically the same time. For the head, that's kind of a carryover from the old Owl build, and I honestly think the head's just pretty solid. Having the long range scan is nice for a Water Strider because you're so dependent on your opponent's positioning versus your own. Knowing where they are at all times, I think, is a pretty important factor to keeping the energy you need in reserve. So when your opponent does dive on you, you know you have enough energy to wiggle out of it or to take the fight head on. Mind Alpha core is just an amazing core. It's got great stats. The arms are the Tion Quain. Those are really just defensive arms, so it's giving me some extra defensive stats. When I view how this build works, the quick boost is how I avoid damage, but I'm also a bit of a bruiser, so I'm trying to stack some defenses so that way when I do get hit, it's not as big of a deal. I'm a big target for a Zimmerman, but if I can dodge fast enough that only half of the pellets hit me, I've got the defenses to make sure that half of pellets isn't quite as painful. The legs, the VP424, there's actually a bit of thought put into those. So the hover speed that you travel at is only determined by your leg choice and your overall weight. It's fast enough that a heavy build has to do things like assault boost to chase me down, which allows me to sit in hover mode and save my energy or when I need to quick boost. The booster, which in my case is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't run the P04 because it's for a lighter weight class. I chose the Sanitize so that way I can deactivate my hover mode and start recovering energy when I want to. That way, if there's a good piece of cover I can hide behind, I can drop down and recover my energy. If I'm far away from my opponent, like let's say it's a Zimmer Rushdown, if they're far away from me, I know I don't need cover because I'm not in their effective range, so that's a good opportunity for me to regenerate energy. That's why I choose Santai over a Coral Generator. As for FCS, it's really easy. It's the best medium range assist, and I have a Majestic. It's nothing complicated. I want the Majestic to hit often at medium range, so this is the one I'm going to use. I'm fairly certain the Explosive Thrower doesn't actually aim with your FCS. I think it aims with its own stat, which is just like where your camera is aiming. Because I've noticed I miss a lot of Explosive Throwers against like a stationary target that make no sense. And the only thing I can think of is like the chest of your AC is actually what's doing the aiming for an Explosive Thrower. And Pulse Armor, I really only do singles, so I really have no reason to use Terminal Armor. It's to reset your stagger, so I'm on the higher end of attitude stability. And a lot of the match is really just trying to put off getting staggered. If I'm doing pretty poorly at doing that, like I'm against a BVO build, which will just build up stagger on you almost instantaneously. Pulse Armor is my get out of jail free card, basically. You're almost always going to want to be hard locked on a Water Strider. What I've noticed is that if you're hard locked and you quick boost at a 90-degree angle from your target, you actually boost in a curve because you're going 90 degrees to your right, but it's keeping the hard lock. And that's very important because the closer you are to your target, the tighter your curve is going to be. The downside being you're not too great at CQC. Like Majestic isn't too brilliant up close, so you start using the evasion to try to get behind them and build up stagger with the Explosive Throwers so that you can whip out combos as you start to outplay your opponent. One thing you can do, and this is easiest to do on Xylem because there's a bunch of different angles in the buildings that you can practice on, is if you're in hover mode and you quick boost spam into something with an angle, you kind of go flying up it. So you can use that to quickly get elevation in a matchup where you might just want to just quickly go up high. The problem is that you do have to have the environment nearby to scoot up. On that note, my assault boost speed is terrible. It's like 331. Like, I need to avoid assault boost at all costs, unless I'm going for a kick. Yeah, your ability to chase is just terrible. If your opponent gets AP advantage, you need to work hard to get it back. Another piece of tech, if you are flying up, so you're holding A, if you're on an Xbox controller like me, and you activate hover mode, you have a little bit of vertical momentum left over. If you quick boost spam during the hover transformation, you can retain that vertical momentum, and you can quick boost at an angle angle. You can get like 2 quick boosts using that, so that's another way to try to get a little bit of height quickly on a water strider. It's kind of nice being able to get up a little bit higher than you normally would be able to. The circle quick boosts I was mentioning earlier, those are a fantastic way to set up easy explosive throwers. A lot of this build relies on trying to set up explosive throwers, so that way everything else can take advantage of the stagger that it applies. The combo for this build is, in an ideal world, you'll stagger your opponent with explosive thrower, shoot the majestic for the guaranteed majestic punish, then you'll get a kick in, which since you're a heavier AC, that kick is going to hurt, and you'll have enough time to throw your explosive thrower out and get a frame trap on your opponent, and that's basically your go-to combo. In certain matchups, like against a light build, like a BVO or a Lambrat, that's almost enough to fully one-shot them. So if you can start that combo, you can actually get a lot of burst damage out of this build. The problem is that it's not a true combo, and your opponent won't be able to counterattack within the combo, so you're brawling it out at that point. This is the warning to all aspiring Water Strider players. You are countered by the meta. There is no aspect of the meta that you just beat with this setup. The problem is that Zim Rushdown and Crab Knight, the PS shield, it ruins your whole day. They have 6 parries, and you only really have 2 attacks that need to worry about parrying, being the Majestic and Explosive Thrower, so they can parry you all day. The only way you outplay those builds is trying to force them to do an animation that you can punish. If it's a Zimmer Rushdown, and they shoot their left-hand Zimmer, while they're shooting that Zimmer, they can't use their PS shield. So that would be an opportunity where you want to hit them because you know they can't block. If they do a kick, it's the same deal. You know they can't block. That applies to the Rat Knight and the Crab Knight. Both of those also have hammer. If your opponent goes for a hammer, that's another opportunity to punish. But the problem is if they play passive enough and they always wait to parry with that PS shield, you're going to feel like you can never stagger them, and it's a total slog. As for BVO, the problem is you're such a big target, and Vientos will stagger you so quickly that it's really a game of how many times can you hit the explosive thrower, because that's your only good weapon against a BVO who gets up in your face. So you're pretty much banking on your explosive thrower carrying you through the fight. More bad news, Lambrats. It is incredibly difficult to chase down a Lambrat on this build. Just to give you an idea of what I have to do, I need to assault boost kick into the air to save on EN. The assault boost kick at the Lamb. Again, just trying to save EN. Once I'm close enough to lock on, then I deploy hover mode, try to weave past as many missiles as possible, and only when I'm close enough to start using Majestic and Explosive Thrower do you start quick boost spamming. A lot of that matchup is determined by the first fight, and the problem with tanks is if it's a good tank player and they're using good tank movement, you're not going to be able to kite them forever. It's inevitable. Now, a bad tank player is a totally different situation. You can kite them all day long, but at the end of the day, the biggest factor for a Water Strider is the map. Whether or not you're actually able to use it to your advantage is a luck of the draw in ranked. Definitely not impossible matchups. They can be overcome, but it's almost entirely up to you to outplay your opponent. It's actually a bit of a Sekiro reference. The old version, the heavy owl with the auroras. If you've ever played Sekiro, there's a boss fight named Owl. I think it's the Owl Father variant, which has this like spectral blue owl who fights alongside him. So that's the auroras. And he has a attack he uses where he throws out gunpowder in front of himself, and then he slices his sword through it, igniting the gunpowder with sparks, and it causes a big explosion. And it looks a lot like the explosive thrower. So it was kind of a little bit of a reference with those two weapons. So the current owl, since I don't have the auroras anymore, it's really just the carryover of the name and the color pattern and those type of details. So the current owl isn't really as much of a reference as the old one was, but if I did have to say there's an inspiration for it, it would be from Sekiro. I'm pretty sure the director of Sekiro is like also the game director of AC6, so I like to think that the explosive thrower was a reference to Sekiro.
Next time on Armored Legends.
Takafumi is one of the most unique ACs and players I've ever fought in this game. His movement is just insane. I don't even know how to describe it. I pride myself on fighting every single type of AC I can until I understand it, and not a single part of my past experience mattered while fighting him.